Okay, if I could have the council members turn their cameras on, we'll we'll start the meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for 7:01. Welcome to the 67th meeting of council, Monday, June 13th, 2022. I'll note that this is a hybrid meeting with some members of council and the clerk attending in person in the council chambers, and some members of staff and the public attending virtually, as well as some public members in person. All rules of procedure and conduct apply to this meeting as if all were in attendance in person. If during the meeting, any member of council loses their connection or has technical difficulties, we will pause for a moment to allow that person to try and reconnect within a few minutes, and assuming we still have quorum, we will continue with the meeting. The meetings are live streamed and recorded. So we were in closed session prior to this meeting, and could I have a motion to rise and report from council? Councillor Townend, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Porter. And the recommendation was that continuing in the interest of transparency and open government, the mayor, deputy mayor reports in open session, but the following outcome from today's closed session meeting. The closed session minutes of May 14th, 20th, 24th, and June 6th, 2022 were adopted. Direction was provided to staff, and that there was no further report. So if I could, all in favor of the motion, if I could ask you to raise a hand. Motion is passed. And at this time, we will have the playing of the national anthem. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omami peoples. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land, who also makes this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Two-Row Wampum, Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. At this time, we're at the open forum. The first 15 minutes of any regular council meeting will be set aside for open forum. Any individual may address council to voice opinion on subjects of municipal concern, excluding matters subject to public meeting. You can only speak once and for no more than 3 minutes. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Ontario Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Act, that all information provided for or at a public meeting, consultation, or other public process are considered part of the public record. In-person meetings have resumed with a hybrid format option where individuals can join electronically. Did we have anyone? We didn't have anyone register for the meeting tonight? Okay. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak through the open forum, we'd ask that you use the raise hand feature and the clerk will bring you into the meeting. Seeing none, I'll just provide one more opportunity. If anyone wishes to speak in the open forum, if you use the raise hand, we will bring you into the meeting. So seeing none, excuse me. Moving on to 6.1, Community Improvement Plans, Public Meeting. In accordance with Section 28 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, a virtual statutory public meeting will be held in the council chambers of the Corporation of Loyalist Township on Monday, June 13th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter to consider an industrial community improvement plan and a brownfield community improvement plan. The purpose of the two proposed community improvement plans is to assist in the revitalization, encouragement, investment, or reinvestment in Loyalist Township. Moreover, the community improvement plans will provide grant and assistance programs to aid in the development of industrial uses and brownfield redevelopment. The subject lands of the proposed community improvement plans cover the entirety of the Loyalist Township. The proposed industrial community improvement plan aims to create tax increment equivalent grant incentives, TIEG, to develop vacant or underutilized lands into productive industrial uses. The proposed brownfield community improvement plan is to facilitate the rehabilitation of properties that may be contaminated and are currently underutilized, derelict, or vacant through the means of 4 grant opportunities. So at this time, we will hold the public meeting. And I see the director and Mr. Winicky is on. Is there a presentation or any information before we open it to the public?
So through you, your worship, yes, absolutely. Mr. Winicky has a short presentation.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Your Worship. I had to turn the dehumidifier off. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, members of the public. I'm going to try and share this presentation on the screen. Is that coming up for everyone?
Yes, it appears to.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to provide like a quick summary of these two plans that are being brought forward today, highlighting some of the key aspects of them and how we got here. So basically, in terms of context, over the last 20 years, industrial assessment as a portion of the township's overall tax base has declined from 9% in 2000 to 2% in 2019. Loyalist Township does have several zoned ready industrial properties, fully, partially, and non-service, both public and privately owned. Municipalities in this day and age must have both location and financial incentives to complete and attract industrial investment. However, the Municipal Act, there are some boundaries here that does prohibit what's called bonusing, which is defined as giving or lending any property of the municipality, including money, leasing or selling any property of the municipality for less than fair market value, and giving a total or partial exemption from any levy, charge, or fee. But there is one avenue that is permitted to encourage the development of industrial uses, and that is the development of a tax incremental equivalent grant. This provides relief from the township's portion of the total property tax levy for the first few years of operation to allow these industries to become established. Other incentives are grants to assist with conducting environmental studies, application fees, and tax assistance during redevelopment. So what are community improvement plans? They are created under Section 28 of the Ontario Planning Act, and they are designed to attract or retain industrial business, to encourage investment or reinvestment at greenfield sites. And their objectives are to increase employment, to enhance property assessment and economic activity, to encourage land sales, and to take advantage of existing private and public infrastructure. I do note that the new official plan, which was approved earlier this year, does contain policies which allow these CIPs to be implemented township-wide. So the first program is the Industrial Community Improvement Plan, and the purpose of this plan is to provide an opportunity to develop and redevelop industrial zone properties through the use of a tax increment equivalent grant. This will reduce the initial cost barrier for an industry that's getting established with significant upfront capital costs before production and cash flow begins. The second plan being provided today is the Brownfields Community Improvement Plan. Now, brownfields are defined as undeveloped or previously developed properties that may have been contaminated. They are usually, but not exclusively, former industrial or commercial properties that may be underutilized, derelict, or vacant. These properties are unattractive for redevelopment due to their potential soil contamination, and it's often on an unknown scale. So there's a huge amount of risk involved in these ventures. Costs involved in the assessment and rehabilitation of the site to meet current environmental requirements can very often be very onerous. The Brownfields program that's before you today, it actually is broken out into four grant opportunities. The first one is the Environmental Study Grant. That covers eligible costs for studies to investigate the extent of contamination and potential rehabilitation costs. There's a Brownfields Fees Grant that provides partial relief from fees associated with planning applications, demolition permits, and building permits. There is a Brownfields Tax Assistance, and that is after a Phase 2 ESA and before a building permit is issued. This offsets a portion of the property tax to assist with remediation costs while development is occurring. And then finally, there's a Brownfields Tax Incremental Equivalent Grant Program, and that's a 4-year incrementally reduced property tax grant after development has occurred and there is a documented increase in property assessment when MPAC comes in and reassesses these properties. A budget would have to be allocated by council annually in order to offset these grants under these programs. Since we came to Committee of the Whole with and presented these programs back in May, we have circulated them and have been obtaining feedback, and we've considered feedback from various government agencies, stakeholders, the public, and in the end, we are recommending that these two programs be adopted by means of a bylaw, 2022-059, and the designation of community improvement project area, which, as I mentioned earlier, township-wide, the bylaw 2022-56. Now, there is a sequence that has to happen here. The first bylaw is the 056 has to be passed, which extends these CIPs across the entire township, followed by the second bylaw, which is 059. And just to emphasize that these programs, the reason they're here is they are designed to diversify our tax base, which is a strategic policy goal for the township. Thank you, and I will take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Winnicky. If I could just ask you to stop sharing the screen, I'll be able to see.
Yes, I will stop share. There we go.
And so at this time, I'd ask if anyone in council has any questions regarding these two bylaws and the public meeting. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, just a question regarding how do we, there's publications and web pages and whatnot available to show land that's site ready and whatnot to potential investors and developers and whatnot. How do we market ourselves out of Loyalist? Like, do we, I've seen a couple of these magazines, and I mean, I don't know if they're monthly or annual or whatever, but it was brought to my attention that, you know, we weren't advertising or doing any of these things. I'm just curious.
Through you, Your Worship, I was just going to ask, you mean as far as selling properties that the township owns, or would you mean when we have these programs available?
Both, probably, I guess. When you have the programs available, I mean, I'm thinking of the old Pittsburgh Township. There's a fellow that worked there, Dave Morgan, that used to really push hard on promoting that side of it. I mean, we're at 2%, so we have nowhere to go but up as far as getting more, you know, commercial and whatnot interest. But I should have kept the magazine. I didn't, but it was land available in Ontario for development and various townships. So I was just curious if we ever take part in that, or if you've seen that, or.
Okay, so through Your Worship, we work in partnership with the county economic development office. I will ask about that magazine. To answer your question, I have not personally seen that, but I know that the county economic development office has been very active as far as keeping a list of land that we have available, and when they get leads from potential purchaser is when they would, you know, they could showcase. They have a list of land that is available. I am also aware that they do attend a number of events throughout the year, which are meant to increase economic development, you know, throughout the province for sure. And that's when they would be showcasing land that is available for purchase. As far as our programs, you know, when we do have phone calls from potential purchaser or anyone that's interested either in public land or private land, you know, now that we have this program, we certainly talk about all the different programs we have. And now that we, well, not now, but once this program is passed, if council chooses to pass this program, it will be discussed with any other potential purchaser that come forward, moving forward.
Okay. I will also follow up on my end to see if I can find a copy of that publication. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Porter.
The community improvement plan, is it unique to our municipality, or do you know which other municipalities and have this in place? And does the county have one? Or is that a separate thing for just a lower tier municipality to have?
Director, do you want that, or would you rather or Mr. Winnicky?
Well, I'll start off. I can say that the policies in these programs were based on municipal best practices. So these are practices that other municipalities do use. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing was one of the entities that commented on these CIPs, although they couldn't provide us written comments because of the provincial election. They did verbally advise us that, you know, these policies are exactly, or the policies in these programs are exactly the kind of best practices that they advise their municipal clients throughout the province. So I think we're on the right track with these.
Thank you. And as far as the county is in the same, the county is just about a meeting or two behind us. Once these are passed, they do have basically the identical bylaws coming to the county for the county portion of the taxes as well.
Yeah, because I if I may, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I just want to follow up on Councillor Gordon's point. He makes a very good point there that if this is unique to our municipality, it's a very good marketing tool to use to attract. And you know, the better program we have, of course, the more attractive we become.
Yes, absolutely. We are the first in the county to have the opportunity to pass this, and the county is following right with us. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll turn to the public meeting, and anyone in the public that wishes to speak to these items, if you use a raise hand feature, we can bring you into the meeting. Seeing none.
I see none right now.
One final call, if anyone in the public wishes to join the meeting to speak to this, please use the raise hand feature and we'll bring you in. Seeing none, we'll proceed. Are there any further questions from council before we move to the recommendation? Seeing none, there is a recommendation with part 1 and part 2, which would be to enact and pass both bylaws sequentially. Council, what's your wishes? Councillor Porter.
I'll move to receive the report and adopt recommendations 1 and 2.
You, seconded by Councillor Budrick. Mover, any comments?
Just that I think this is a very good thing, and it's really about time. We've been looking for ways throughout the years to make ourselves more attractive, and you know, as everybody knows, it's huge risks for people to purchase or develop any brownfields, and this will help substantially, I believe.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Budrick. Other members of council, any comment? I would just echo Councillor Porter's comments that I think this is a very positive move, and I think it is substantially going to help with us developing both brownfields and greenfields, and diversifying our tax base as well as bringing in employment. And I'm glad that the county is following with us as well to bring the county portion in as well. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. We're to the confirmation of agenda. We have a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Budrick, seconded by Councillor Parks. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Any declarations for pecuniary interest in tonight's meeting? Seeing none, I will declare mine from closed session in open session that I declared on 6.1 as it is a potential conflict with my employer. And if there's none else, we will move to delegations and presentations. 9.1, Adrian, Jacklin, regarding the community center and library in Odessa. If you could just please come forward. I just read your name, but state your name and your address.
I'm Adrian Jacklin, and my address is 35 Center Street in Odessa.
Thank you. Please proceed with your presentation.
Good evening, Your Worship, council members, and members of the public. Tonight, I'm here to request a library and community center for our community here in Odessa. I'm very new to all of this, so I do apologize if I make any errors or I'm missing the necessary details. My family moved to Odessa at the start of the pandemic, and we absolutely love the area. The mill is one of our favorite places to go. We walk there. Our son loves the natural playground. I love that there are so many families in the area and there's new development being built, so there's plenty more moving in. That being said, we only know one other family really in the area, being the people we bought our house from. The closures, the social distancing and fears have certainly made it hard to get to know people. But I also believe part of it is that we don't really have a community space for people to get together outside of their homes. We have schools, we have churches, we have some lovely green spaces, a couple of restaurants, but we lack a true community center where people of all ages and backgrounds can get together to play, learn, and get to know one another. Before moving to Odessa, I lived with my parents in Kingston. And while I was pregnant with my son, I was caring for my niece. She was about 1.5 years at the time. Nearly every day, I would take her to an early on play group at a community center that was near their house. Through that community center, I was able to access community programs for better nutrition during my pregnancy and get support from staff during challenging times. And my niece was able to safely explore and play with others. Once my son arrived, I brought him to playgroup as well and was able to access other community resources and programs through the center. We eventually started going to the playgroup at the Boys and Girls Club off of Highway 15. My son had a lot of developmental delays in his first couple of years of life. So I like this location because it has a nice padded play structure and it's a great space for babies to explore. We would go almost every day, and this is where he developed the confidence to walk and stand and climb. It's also where we met other parents and allowed my son to explore and develop his independence. The staff supported me in a variety of ways, from purchasing a crochet mat that I made to promoting a book that I published. Once the pandemic hit and I was unable to take my son and niece to playgroup, things got a lot more challenging, and I have felt a lot more isolated. I'm sure the same can be said of many others. These two places showed me the importance of having a community space, and the pandemic truly highlighted that for me. I recognize that Odessa is relatively close to Amherst and Kingston and Napanee, all of which have a public library and community center. However, these places are all at least a 10-minute drive away, making them inaccessible to anyone without a vehicle or driver's license. Furthermore, even if a public transit system were in place, it's highly unlikely that younger children would be able to travel to these places by themselves to meet with their friends. So I also recognize that we are lucky enough to have a few childcare facilities, a primary school and secondary school in Odessa that can act as resources. However, those resources are limited to only a portion of the population, and not all families in Odessa will have children attending those schools and daycare. Homeschooled children and those attending schools in other regions are limited in their ability to interact with other community members and access learning resources in our community due to the lack of communal space. I'm asking for a community center and library so that people in Odessa can have access to the same support and experience I was able to access in Kingston. I'm asking for this center so that new families can make connections, children of all ages have somewhere safe to hang out and play, and so that our community members can more easily access resources. We are a vibrant and growing community, and I believe that we would greatly benefit from a community center that allows us to build a resilient community and population. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the first presentation live since we're back in chambers. Council, any questions? Excuse me. Excuse me. Or comments for the delegation tonight? Councillor Porter.
Yeah, I do have a comment. I'd just like to thank you very much for bringing this forward. You make some very important points, and I believe that Odessa has grown at a rate and it continues to grow, that it is certainly warranted that at least investigation, or at least looking into the possibility of a community center would definitely benefit the community a great deal. So I thank you again for bringing this up and bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Excuse me. In that case, I would entertain a motion from council. And I know, just for clarification before we get to that, the libraries in this county fall under the jurisdiction of the county.
Okay.
So it would be very appropriate for this to be forwarded to the county
Okay.
for their consideration. And then the community centers would be more of a municipal, which would fall on council to do a review. And also there are some county play groups and things like that that are, they partner with like churches and that. But if you can leave your information, we can make sure that you're aware of all of those as well while we're reviewing it. If the direction was to review, then while we're reviewing it.
Perfect. Thank you.
So with that, council, is there any direction, motion that we would like to have? Councillor Porter.
Yeah, move to receive the delegation and direct staff to bring back a report that discusses possible options for a future community center in Odessa. Options, to include sharing spaces, utilizing facilities that already exist by partnering with other organizations, and that type of thing.
So moved. Second, Councillor Budrick. Mover, any comments?
No.
Seconder?
Just echo Councillor Porter's comments that Odessa is growing. There are, a need for some options. So looking into finding what's out there would be very important.
Thank you. Other members of council? Any comments? Just before I call the question, I'll ask the clerk and her staff, is the motion understood, clear? Thank you. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And although we do have a riveting meeting, we understand that if you do have other things to do, feel free. 9.2, Jake Ennis regarding Gun Road improvements. And is Mr. Ennis?
Just inviting him over.
Okay, he's coming into it.
Coming in now, you can be virtual.
Mr. Ennis, good evening.
Good evening.
Please proceed with your delegation. If you could give your full name and your address, please.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thanks, Council, for some time at this meeting. My name is Jake Ennis, and I live on Caton Road, but I'm also a property owner on Gun Road. And Council will have in their agenda package a letter from some of the Gun Road property owners, as well as the township's policy on improving a road allowance to township standards, and as well as a third item, a letter from the Greater Kingston Soccer Association, who are also a property owner on Gun Road, regarding improvements to Gun Road. I imagine council's probably familiar with Gun Road. It's just north of Taylor Kidd off County Road 6. It's in an area zoned rural. It was built just over 10 years ago by the soccer association to access their property, and then they built a couple of soccer fields back there. It was built to the kind of modified rural road standard. So, not quite to standard, but pretty close as far as I understand. And as well, council's probably quite aware that the township has a policy which was created in 1987. That's pretty short and sweet, but it kind of essentially says roads can be improved to township standards, but the costs will be borne by the benefiting property owners. As well, since 1987, and this was created kind of before the advent of development charges, township-wide development charges in Loyalist Township. And as council well knows, the development charges are quite significant now. They're just shy of $9,000 per house. And that is to, in part as well, to fund roads and growth-related road improvements and stormwater management. And so, their rural houses pay these development charges when they're built, just as a house in the subdivision in Amherst would pay the development charge. And so for us, we saw that there are now these development charges, and thought, wouldn't it be reasonable that these development charges go towards funding growth-related improvements to Gun Road, because it will all be growth-related. It's totally undeveloped, other than the soccer fields at the very end. So all the houses that get built on Gun Road will pay these development charges, and it's about 1 kilometer long, as I said. And as well as far as we understand it, no other rural road residents have had to pay, both these pretty significant development charges, and then on top of that, go together and pay additional charges to improve the road for a rural road in Loyalist Township, as far as we're aware of. And so we had lots of discussions with the engineering staff, and they were very helpful to help us kind of understand what the situation is. But sort of came to the conclusion that this is a decision for council, and that's why we brought it to you today. And then just on the topic of the soccer association's letter, you'll see in that letter that they're quite supportive of the road being improved and the township assuming the road and houses being built back there, because they've had all kinds of trouble with their fields, with theft and vandalism and trespassing and illegal dumping that they've had to deal with. And to the point where, as a nonprofit kind of sports organization, they can't justify any investment in fixing up the current fields or considering making new fields due to all these troubles they've had with the vandalism and trespassing and theft. So they're quite supportive as well. The idea being that if the roads improved and houses are built back there, it'll help with some of these issues that they're facing. But just in terms of timing, we wanted to bring it to council. We're hoping for a council direction, and we're hoping to receive the direction as soon as we can. One, just so that kind of the Gun Road property owners can understand get clarity on the situation and develop their properties. And two, though it may have some implications for if Gun Road is included in the infrastructure master plan or not, and which I understand staff is currently in the process of finalizing. So thanks very much for your time, Council, and I'm happy to answer any questions, if any.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, we thank you for bringing this forward to the township, and I would look to council. It was a comment about it's been discussed with staff, and there's been some discussion back and forth with Mr. Ennis and staff. So it may be appropriate to have a staff report come back, but I'll leave that to council, what your motion would be. Councilor Hudrick?
That was where I was going, is we could get a staff report on the viability, the financial impact, and things like that, for sure.
And of course, receive that.
Receive, yes, receive the delegation, so yes.
Thank you.
You're better with words than I am, sir.
So moved, only at times. Seconded by Councilor Porter. Any further comments from the mover? None. Seconder? Councilor Porter, any comments? None. Other members of council? I call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Thank you for bringing this forward, and the staff report will be coming back on the topic. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that ends our delegations. Moving on to adoption of the minutes. We have the minutes of May 14th, 2022. Were there any errors or omissions noted? Seeing none, could we have a motion to adopt, please, as circulated? Councilor Gordon, so moved. Seconded by Councilor Porter. Any comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Confirmation of the May 20th minutes. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adopt as circulated? Moved by Councilor Porter, seconded by Councilor Parks. Any comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Minutes of May 24th, 2022. Any errors or omissions noted? Seeing none, we have a recommendation to adopt as circular. Moved by Councilor Parks, seconded by Councilor Booger. Any comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. And the minutes of June 6th, 2022. Any questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, we have a motion to adopt as circular. Councilor Booger, seconded by Councilor Parks. Any comments? Seeing none, ask the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Nothing under the direction. The next one is 14.1, Taxi Commission and Ride Sharing Regulation Harmonization Update. Director McFarland, I see you've entered. Do you have anything to add to the item?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Okay. Excuse me. So with that, council, any questions related to this topic? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us. What's council's wishes? Councilor Boudreaux?
Adopt the recommendations,
Receive and adopt.
please.
So moved, seconded by Councilor Parks. Any comments or questions related to this?
No, just being the council liaison on this committee. I know that a lot of work has gone into getting to this point, so yeah, almost over the goal line.
Perfect. Thank you. Seconder? Seeing none. Any other members? Any comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Love Road speed limit petition. The staff response with the recommendation. Any director, anything further to the report on this, or just here for answer questions?
Yep, nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councilor Porter.
Yes, to Ms. McFarland through you, Deputy Mayor. Is there, I know that you're saying that it's not in the, that it doesn't meet the criteria for the traffic calming policy, but it is a very unique road as well. It's 1.5 kilometer, it dead ends at the end of it with a traffic circle. And there's not a lot of people that use it, right? I mean, they're saying there's a 40 vehicle count, but I'm just wondering, even though it doesn't meet the traffic calming policy, I can't see what harm it would do to reduce the speed limit on that road. I mean, so many residents on that road are asking for us to do it. You know, they are citing that there's a lot of dust kicking up. There's some people that are going quite quickly. I know that 60 kilometers an area on a road like that can create a lot of dust. So is there, what is the downside of agreeing to put the speed limit down to 40 kilometers?
Through you, Your Worship, it would go against the policy that council has established for the criteria. And by doing that, it could open it up to all other areas that are, we'd be setting a precedent that we aren't following the policy that's in place. So there's concerns, you know, anytime we go against or decide to go outside of the established policies, there's concerns for what precedent that sets for the policies for other locations.
Okay, and to follow up with that, I cannot think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I am racking my brains of all the township roads I've driven to think of another road that is the same as this road. I cannot think of a single one, and maybe there are another one or another two, but as I said earlier, it is very unique. So I'm wondering if we should be just looking at that policy and having an exception, having the ability to have an exception in the policy for a unique situation such as this.
Through you, Your Worship, as we stated, we are looking at different traffic calming measures that are happening right now with the infrastructure master plan. You know, we can look at recommendations arising from the master plan and determine if the existing traffic calming measure policy requires amendment and revisit the reported issues at that time, if council should wish for us to do that.
Thank you. Anything more, Councilor Porter, at this time?
The traffic calming policy, can you just tell me how that relates to the master plan? Like that's part of the master, that particular policy is within the master plan? Is that why you're saying we have to wait for the master plan? Like, I'm not sure I'm following the logic.
Through you, Your Worship. So the current traffic calming policy is in place, and there's certain criteria that has to be met in order to make reductions in speed limits. That isn't the study that has been done on this road. It doesn't meet that. As part of our overall infrastructure master plan, there has been a number of complaints with regards to speed and different ideas for traffic calming. So as part of the recommendations that are coming out of the infrastructure master plan, one of those could possibly be that we review that policy and update it based on the information that we have.
that, Councillor Porter, is that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. No, that's good. Thank you.
Other members of council, any questions for staff? Seeing none, we do have a report with the recommendation before us. How does council wish to proceed? Would anyone wish to make a motion on related to this? Councillor Porter?
Yes, move to receive the report and that the residents of Love Road be advised that currently it does not meet the criteria in the traffic calming policy. And that when the policy is reviewed, that there be a part in that policy that allows for exceptions in circumstances that aren't typical of township roads.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Budrick. Any questions or comments from the mover?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, my preference would be to just have the policy amended right away and allow Love Road to be an exception. But I also don't want to put that extra work as we are, as you say, that it will be reviewed with the infrastructure master plan. So I think we just let it go until then. And hopefully our hands aren't so tied in a new policy that we can't recognize exceptions or things that are very unique. As I said, I cannot think of another road that is the same as Love Road. And I think it does warrant an exception.
Thank you. Seconder?
I did speak with a resident on the road after the agenda came out on Friday, and this person has a career in law enforcement and understands how traffic should be, and they said it is a significant problem.
Thank you. Other members of council? Seeing none? Clerk's department, everything's clear for the motion? Thank you. So with that, I will call the question. All those in
Are you
favor?
going back to the mover?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the point of order.
It's only because I had something else to say, but
Please proceed.
when do you figure, when are you thinking that the infrastructure, that the recommendations about the traffic calming policy will be revisited?
Sorry, through you, your worship. I'm not in charge of that project, so I don't know the exact timeline. I know that I have a day scheduled this week for most of the day to review a lot of the information and that has been gathered and look at those. So I'm assuming relatively soon, but I see Director Merritt has come on to the screen, so she may be able to answer that question more in terms of timelines.
Director Merritt?
Yes, through you, your worship. So if that policy is being suggested as a project under the infrastructure master plan, the infrastructure master plan is not going to get finalized until beginning of the year 2023. We are running against the clock right now with the municipal election. We will not be able to bring a report to council for council to endorse the IMP at this time. We're doing most of the work, a lot of the work this summer and through the fall, and but it will not be coming back to council until early in 2023.
Thank you. That answer your question, Councillor Porter? Okay, thank you. So with that, I will now call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. So moving on to economic growth and community development. 16.1, funding options for purchase of Gowan property. And Director Merritt is here. Do you have anything more to add?
Through you, Your Worship, no, there is nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Council, any questions regarding this report? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us, 3 parts and an or in between each one. Councillor Town.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to receive the report and adopt recommendation number 2.
Number 2. So moved. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Booger. Mover, would you give comment? Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to refer briefly to the fact that this issue has been somewhat controversial in Ward 1. As has been discussed on social media, there is a perception that against the spirit and in some instances the letter of the policy, which was of course determined by council, that staff are attempting to use renewable energy monies sort of as a slush fund to address various and sundry shortfalls and expenses. And the worry and concern is that this will set a precedent and become the norm. Moreover, that now in this particular report that staff are attempting to circumvent the check and balance of the subcommittees by targeting the reserve funds, which technically do not require committee process or administration. Now, as we know, as members of council, the difference between perception and reality is often quite stark, and I would say this instance is no different. Whilst I, of anyone, appreciate the understandable sensitivities around these funds, this general perception is simply not true. I want to state very clearly for the record that I stand full square behind staff's altruism and their serious intentions to engage public consultation to determine future use of these lands for the future vibrancy of Amherst Island and the Loyalist Township community at large. And I vouch for their respect for the importance of the renewable energy vibrancy funds and what they represent for Ward 1 in particular. Now, considering the purchase of the land, which was a forward-thinking decision, was funded through the working fund reserve at that time, it's not at all controversial to require the budget shortfall be addressed in some way. The process to determine that has been transparent, hence today's report on the agenda. There is nothing hidden or untoward. Hence, staff have provided in option number 2 an alternative funding option through the reserve, then the reserve from the renewable energy, one which I support. The renewable energy policy that this council determined stipulated that those reserves were to be used after the 20-year period of the agreements, and I think it prudent that council adhere to its own policy, particularly within a calendar year of ratifying it. Likewise, I think it reasonable for taxpayers in any ward of the township to assume that the general rate is an appropriate funding source for capital projects of this kind. And as the funds are in fact available from the general rate capital reserve, credit due to the exclusive diligence of the finance department, that this is, in my view, the most amicable, agreeable option that satisfies all needs and parties and goes a long way to retaining the good faith and the good humor that I personally wish to continue to define the process by which the public can determine the future use of those important public lands. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, comment?
Yes, short and sweet. We agreed to buy this long before this money was available, and we have to stick by that. And that's where the money was going to come from before. Need to keep some continuity.
Thank you. Other members of council? Councillor Porter.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm disagreeing with the motion, but I do want to point out that at the time we agreed to purchase that land, it was made very clear to us that the cost of the land could be funded from the Vibrancy Fund. And I think that did play that was a big factor in our decision to go ahead and purchase it, is that we weren't going to ask the taxpayers to pay for it. It was going to come out of the fund. Now, I just want everybody to be aware of that, because that certainly impacted my decision originally to go ahead and purchase it, was that we weren't going to saddle this on the taxpayers, that the funding, that the money would be available through that Vibrancy Fund. So I'm not going to support this motion.
Thank you. Other members of council, any comment? Seeing none, go back to the mover. Any final comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. And moving to 6.2. Vulnerability Assessment Report. This is Director Merritt's again. Anything additional, Director Merritt, to the report?
Nothing additional to add.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation. What's council's wishes to make a motion? Councilor Porter.
Move to receive for information.
So moved, seconded by Councilor Parks. Mover, any comment?
No.
Seconder? None. Others? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. 16.3. The recommendation. NRK Development Limited draft plan of subdivision. Director Merritt, anything to add to the report?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to ask Madam Clerk to bring in Mr. Casemore. Mr. Casemore prepared a short summary.
Very well. Mr. Casemore, you're in the, if you can hear us, you can turn your camera on and enter the meeting. Welcome. You have a presentation to bring to council?
Yes, I do. Just through you, Deputy Mayor, just going to provide a short overview of the subject development proposal. The property currently addressed is 315 Main Street, located in the urban area at the east end of the village of Odessa. Requesting a draft plan of subdivision, an official plan amendment, and a zoning amendment to facilitate the development of a 3-story apartment building and 14 townhomes and a stormwater management facility on the subject property. In 2019, the applicant had submitted a development proposal of the subject lands, which included a public road connecting Hensley and Shane Street and consisting of 16 townhouse units and a 24-unit apartment building. At that time, staff and the consultant had conducted an open house and a public meeting was held with concerns being raised by the public in regards to zoning, parking, servicing, flooding, and drainage in the area. Staff shared many of the concerns raised, and the results of that was a recommendation for deferral of the applications at that time, which was supported by council. Since that time, The applicant, working with staff, provided a new plan in 2021, which resulted in a public meeting held in November of 2021. And in review of that plan from staff's perspective, many of the concerns raised at that time had been alleviated by reducing the density on the site, increasing setbacks, and having parking spaces that having the parking spaces for the apartment building that complied with the requirements of the bylaw, and overall reducing the overall size of the development to provide some room on the property to be more in line. A review of the new design and the redesignation and the zoning proposed, in staff's opinion, promoted a compact and efficient use of land while providing the area with residential uses that are currently not readily available in Odessa. When looking at the zoning relief, in regards to the zoning relief for the townhouses, the reduction of lot area, front yard setbacks, and the exterior side yard still provide enough room for residential activities, parking, and maintenance of the buildings. And from staff's perspective, shouldn't negatively impact the streetscape and the existing properties. It should be noted that the existing properties around this development are well set back from the road, and in many cases up to 100 feet set back. And generally in zoning, the requirement's about 24 to 25 feet, 7.5 meters. So there is quite a bit of room for amenity space. In regards to the zoning relief being requested for the apartment building, the reduction of the front yard setback appears to be reasonable, as well as the nearest property directly across the road from it is over 200 feet setback from the proposed apartment building. And again, that reduction of the front yard from 7.5 meters to 6 meters shouldn't negatively impact the streetscape. And with that big setback, as mentioned, the existing property owner should still have quite a bit of amenity space. As well, the reduction of the parking area to the setback of County Road 2 is reasonable, and as the apartment building will be subject to a site plan control application, staff will be providing some enhanced landscaping and buffering to alleviate any impact it could have on County Road 2. As well, it should be noted the county was circulated on the design and had no issues with that as well. The request to deal with the height and additional story to the apartment building zoning relief being requested can be categorized as more of a technical issue. To demonstrate this point in comparison, the maximum height for townhomes is 10 meters, and the current zoning in the area for single-family homes to be built are at a maximum of 10 meters. So as of right, if somebody wanted to build a house or rip down their existing house, they could build one the same height as this apartment building. For those reasons, we don't feel it really should have a negative impact on the surrounding area. And again, that setback of the existing houses, of course, will help to provide that kind of buffer that it doesn't stick out starkly in the subject neighborhood. Lastly, another consideration that's was raised by the public and considered by staff was the drainage in the area. There's as well evidence of karst that was brought to our attention, and the flooding concerns that the development may have on the surrounding area. In response to these public concerns and our own department's concerns, our engineering department had the conclusions from the source water engineer employed by the applicant peer reviewed, which resulted in supporting the findings provided by the applicant's engineer through the peer review. In review of the report and the proposal before the council, Staff felt the proposal meets the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the township's official plan, and the zoning bylaw, and that essentially we're recommending approval to council on the subject applications based on that. Two other points I just want to point out before I forget these points is that we did receive correspondence this evening from a resident, which was provided to council for review and prior to the meeting this evening, and I hope everybody got that. Just want to make sure everybody received that. And one more note, if a decision isn't finalized this evening, we'll have to make a motion to extend the capacity allocation previously provided for the development. Due to the township requesting a peer review on the file, we weren't able to bring this forward to meet the timelines that were once provided to the applicant. Anyway, that's all that I have to say, and any questions we can take would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Casemore. Council, any questions for staff? Seeing none, we've had the highlights from Mr. Casemore, and we have a recommendation in the report in front of us to approve with 46 conditions. What's council's wishes? Councilor Porter.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
Receive and adopt. So moved, seconded by Councilor Goodrick. Councilor Porter, any comments? Seeing none. Seconder, none. Other council members? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. And Dry Stone Walling Association of Canada. We have a letter here from the association addressed to Mayor Brzee. What's council's wishes? Actually, I just have a quick question to staff before there's a motion. When I read this, it's more of an information than a request. So I'm assuming it's just a motion to receive for information would be adequate unless a council member wants to add something.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Council? Does anyone have a motion? Councilor Parks.
A motion to receive the report for information.
So moved, seconded by Councilor Boudreaux. Any comments from the mover?
Just thank you to the deputy for clarifying that, because I was wondering what the inquiry or what the request was.
You're welcome. Seconder, no comment. Other members? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. Notice of motion or direct motion? Is there any member that has a notice of motion or a direct motion for tonight's meeting? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. For the purposes of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are of a repetitive and routine nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for a separate vote upon the request of any councillor. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. So of the items in the consent agenda, is there anything that council wishes to separate from the remainder? Seeing none, do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Councillor Porter? Sorry, so moved? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Parks. Any comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. And just making sure I don't miss anything. The next item is the confirmatory, sorry. Any updates from members appointed to county council, committees, or local boards? Seeing none. Members' privilege. Is there anyone who wishes to bring anything forward under members' privilege? Councillor Budrick?
Just like to bring forward the passing of long-time Loyalist Township resident from Milton Road, Bob Allen. A tough fight near the end. I know it's unfortunate, but he passed tonight.
Condolences to the family. Sure. Anyone else have anything under the members' privilege? Councillor Porter.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, to the clerk, Debbie Chapman. I was going to bring this up in new business, but I'm not even sure. I mean, we see that title, but we never see anything under that title. And I'm not sure the purpose of it, but if it is to bring up new business or ask questions about potential new business, the question I have for you is, we've talked about the ATV bylaw a while back, and I think it was several months ago now, we are going to look at reviewing that. Can you give me an update where that's at and when it's coming back to council?
Through your worship, it is on our list, just with timelines. I don't have any to provide as an update at this point, but we will be coming forward with a list of where those bylaw reviews are. We have a few of them, parking, ATVs, a couple that will be coming forward.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any items under members' privilege? Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I just wanted to remind everyone and mention congratulations is in order to former or current mayor Rick Brzee, and his I don't want to say a landslide, but his significant win. So we wish him all the best, and it's going to have, I think, a positive impact to have someone as local and as well now, knows our township as well. So I wish him all the best, and just wanted to wish him congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other items under members' privilege? Seeing none, I have a mover for the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Budrick, seconded by Councillor Parks. No comments, I'm assuming. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. The upcoming meetings, June 27th at 7 p.m. for a council meeting. July 4th at 6 o'clock for Committee of Adjustment. After that at 6:30, there's Committee of the Whole. And on the 11th of July at 7 p.m., another council meeting. That's all. No other ones have been, since this has come up?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to adjourn. Could I have a mover to adjourn? Councillor Budrick, seconded by Councillor Town. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is passed. We are adjourned. Thank you.